Welcome to motor racing hell, otherwise known as Spa. This is the scene for the opening race of the season for Europe's leading sports car teams. It's a full-throttle dress rehearsal for the 24 Hours of Le Mans in June. Spa's famous high-speed corners and chicanes and constantly changing weather guarantee 6 hours of mayhem, as the favourites try to fight off the challenge of an up-and-coming small British team going all out for their first win. It's race day at Spa in southern Belgium. Creation Autosport's 11-man team is hard at work in their garage, preparing their 500 horsepower DBA prototype for this important milestone on the road to Le Mans in just 2 months' time. Mechanic Nigel Bowman is preparing the spare bodywork.
Just putting in some lights into the spare wings. They do get damaged quite easily in an accident.
Monitoring live data from the car is engineer Tina Gade's role.
What we're looking at basically on the telemetry is engine-related data, so things like temperatures and pressures on the car. What we're really looking out for more than anything else on the data is potential problems. The car's about to overheat, the temperature's getting a little bit high, we know we might have a problem.
And tyre man Steve King is marking up his rubber.
Every set's got a number, making a note of what we've got and what we sent back, and I'm trying to get my head around it.
After weeks of preparation and testing, today there's no room for error. In yesterday's qualifying, Nick Minasson put Creation in contention with the second fastest time, missing out on pole position for today's race by just 0.02 of a second. But for team owner Mike Jankowski, speed has never been the real issue.
We started 6 races last year, 3 starting from pole. We finished only 2.
Creation have been spending too much time in the garage and not enough on the track. To be a serious contender for Le Mans, Creation must solve their reliability problems. And today's 6-hour race will be a real test of their progress this year. If they can finish this race, they have a good chance to achieve their first ever win. Today, Spa's spectacular high-speed track will be at its most challenging because it's wet. As well as delivering reliability, Creation's engineer Ian Smith needs to provide his drivers with a car that's fast, but not too easy to crash.
And there's every possibility it's going to rain in the race.
With the start of the race less than half an hour away, Smithy has still got an important decision to make: what type of tyres to use.
Intermediates are going on the car now.
Smithy decides to try the intermediate tyres, which are lightly grooved for maximum grip on a drying track. But it's risky, as Creation have never used these tyres before. Nick has just 3 laps to try them out before he must take up his position on the starting grid.
It's pretty good, because the track has already dry from my first lap out. There's some places where it's pretty good, actually.
Nick likes the tyres.
Are you going to be happy to leave these on, yeah?
Yeah, hopefully it doesn't rain.
Oh well, the wets are here ready to go on if we need to put them on at the last second.
5 minutes, all right? If you need to go for a piss, go now. Don't stop talking to anyone, though, will you?
Mike personally funds most of the £200,000 it costs per race to run this team. And he's getting impatient for results.
I'm very nervous. Naturally, started the race, conditions are unpredictable. At this point, your heart's beating like 1,000,000 times a minute.
He's quite happy with it.
His team manager, Ian Bickerton, has been focusing on a plan to make sure Creation at least finish this race.
I want to lead the last lap, and that's it. We don't need to lead the first one.
Bix has decreed a cautious strategy. His drivers are under strict orders to drive carefully to conserve the car and avoid collisions at all costs.
We can't trade paint with these cars, especially the Audi and the Pescarolo behind me. It's a strong car, it's built like a tank. We got to stay out of trouble.
While Vic's challenge is to keep his fast but fragile car in the race, rival team Orica will need a very different strategy to get a good result. Their 4-time Le Mans winning Audi R8 has proved almost indestructible. And Orica won't mind their drivers throwing it about a bit, because they'll need to drive flat out from start to finish to make up for being over a second a lap slower than the top cars, thanks to restrictions imposed by this year's technical regulations.
La course, donc c'est un entraînement grandeur nature avant la course des 24 heures du Mans. Simplement, je dirais, il y a un petit peu de frustration parce que le règlement technique a beaucoup pénalisé notre voiture, l'Audi.
Team Pescarolo's gamble this year to redesign their car to take advantage of the new technical regulations has paid off with pole position. Their drivers may struggle for grip in the fast corners in the wet, but in terms of straight-line speed, this car is untouchable.
Tout va bien, maintenant la course commence. Jusque-là, on a fait le carton plein avec le meilleur temps dans chaque séance et le meilleur temps warm-up et le meilleur temps à la pole. Mais la course, c'est seulement maintenant que ça commence, il ne faut pas l'oublier.
Pescarolo's strategy will be to push from the start and try to build a lead. So if they do get any problems, they'll have time in hand to sort them out.
Everybody off the grid, please. Can you now start making your way from the grid back through the pit lane?
The race will start at exactly noon. The winner will be the team which has completed the most laps by exactly 6 p.m. For the 47 drivers on the grid, many of whom will drive for over 3 hours before handing over to teammates, there's just a few moments of calm before the loneliness of the long-distance endurance racer begins. The cars pull away for a parade lap in starting formation. Nick weaves his car behind the safety car to keep some temperature in his new tyres, ready for the rolling start. It's race on. On the first lap, Nick drops to 4th place. He's keeping out of trouble, but it's not quite going to Vic's plan. Pescarolo and Orica made last-minute decisions to run on full wet tyres, and now they're building a big lead. Creation must wait for the track conditions to swing in their favour.
Although Pescarolo and the Audi have pulled out a 40-second gap on us, it's now just they're starting to slow down, which means their wets are probably going off, and our inters are, Nick's starting to go a bit quicker, which means the inters are probably just coming into their own.
It takes just 40 minutes for the 90-litre fuel tanks of these 650 horsepower machines to run dry, and the first pit stops begin. The high-powered Pescarolo is a fuel guzzler and comes in first, and changes from wet to intermediate tyres. Creation saved 15 seconds by staying on the same tyres. They're still further behind than they'd hoped, but Bix is sticking to his guns. He has Nick maintain a cautious pace, avoiding the big bumps and curbs that, after 6 hours of racing, could badly damage the car and put it out of yet another race. Orica are last to stop. Their strategy is to maximise their Audi R8's superior fuel efficiency and save time by doing fewer pit stops during the race. But there's a setback. Because of Orica's tyre choice, Ortelli has to be called in early. On the drying track, his wet tyres are now off the pace. The team pulls out a set of cut slicks, a homemade compromise between smooth slicks and grooved intermediates. But by the time Ortelli enters the pits, he decides it's now dry enough to gamble on a set of slick tyres. If it pays off, these tyres will help him close the gap to Pescarolo. With just over an hour gone, all 3 top teams are now on different strategies. But Creation may have a problem. Their telemetry is showing an electrical problem. The battery should maintain 14.5 volts, but it's falling dangerously close to a cut-off point at which there won't be enough power to operate the gearbox.
When he gets down to 10, he won't change gear.
But no, it's when he gets down to 11, we bring him back in again.
Creation now have to work out exactly what's wrong and how to fix it. It could be the wiring, it could be the battery, or it could be the alternator, the component which recharges the battery when the engine is running. Either way, Creation are going to fall behind. But two spectacular crashes work to their favour. A wayward Ferrari takes out a Zytek prototype. And a second crash brings out an army of safety marshals. The remaining cars must form a slow train behind a safety car, lapping at over 5 minutes a lap. Now Creation can pit, diagnose and fix the problem, and only lose a few laps.
Here you go, mate, here you go, right. Switch everything off, switch everything off.
OK,
Guys, you can read bolts, yeah? In a minute, I'm going to get you to start the engine, and I want you to rev the nuts off it. It needs to rev to about 7,000 RPM. Okay, let's just do that.
Smith is hoping it's the battery, which would be a quick fix. A broken alternator wouldn't. That would take Creation's 3 mechanics at least 10 minutes to change.
Change the alternator. Switch the engine off. Switch the engine off, change the alternator, quick as you can, guys.
It's real gutting because at the time, we were comfortably positioned for where we needed to be.
To save time, while the mechanics replace the alternator, Smithy also wants to change the tyres.
As long as there's only 4 people on the car, we can do what we want.
But they'll incur a penalty if more than 4 team members touch the car.
Oi! You're not allowed over that line.
I know.
You're not allowed over that line, all right?
After all their hard work to improve reliability, Creation's setback is pure bad luck. The chance failure of a brand new component.
Okay,
Turn the engine off.
get the back on, let's go. You've just had a new alternator, all right?
At least, thanks to the safety car, they've only lost 3 laps on the leaders.
Mate, off you go, off you go.
It's a gap they can at least try to make up. But now there's no holding back. Bick's cautious car-preserving strategy goes out of the window. It's time to play catch-up, but Creation have been here before.
You're now lying P13, you're 3 laps down. Think back to last year, we went from first to last on the first lap and we still finished on the podium, so if we do a good solid job, keep your head down, we'll be all right.
Nick needs no encouragement to show just how fast he can go. He drives on the edge lap after lap and starts clawing back time on the leaders. But it won't be enough. Creation also need their rivals to have their fair share of misfortune. And Pescarolo are the first to oblige. Eric Comas stalls the engine leaving the pits, losing valuable time. When he finally arrives at the end of the pit lane, he's held up at a red light. The safety car is back out for another crash, and Comas must wait over a minute for the train of cars to pass. Despite slower lap times, Orica are now ahead. The fastest man on the track is Nick Minassian, and he's already back up to 9th.
Nick's got about another 7 laps in his stint, then he's going to have to get out of the car. He's done nearly 3 hours now. So we've gone back from zeros to heroes again.
Nick's doing well, but the pressure's on the whole team to perform. With the drivers changing at the next stop, the teamwork must be flawless. And the bosses must keep working on strategy. A Porsche loses control. And it's time for another safety car. And Mike has an idea. He's spotted a loophole in the safety car regulations.
The plan is when a safety car comes in, Nick is right behind it. When it actually turns on its green lights, that means that the race will go green that lap when he crosses the line. At that point, Nick will pit, so the other cars will be held back. And we'll just do our driver change and our pit stop, and hopefully we may gain 15 to 20 seconds. Fingers crossed.
At the end of his stint, Nick's pulled Creation back to 6th. But that's not good enough for Nick Minassian.
It's a shame we had this problem with the alternator, but happen, eh?
Mike's cleverly timed stop has saved more precious seconds. Now it's up to Creation's number 2 driver, Jamie Campbell-Walter, to keep up the charge. Jamie has proved himself fearless and fast in the wet, and Bix gives him free rein to push the car hard and keep pressure on the leaders. Pescarolo are back in front of Orica, but driver Eric Comas is struggling with the slick tyres as he picks his way through slower traffic. But as Orica's Stefan Ortelli tries to take advantage of the Audi's better handling on the damp track, he loses control. It's a lot of time lost, and a wake-up call for the team bosses who may have left Ortelli in the car for too long. After a wait of nearly 4 hours, Jean-Marc Gounon will now play his part. Ortelli comes in exhausted, using the last of his strength to harness his teammate into the car. It's a disappointing end to a heroic stint. But despite the shunt, he's kept Orica in contention.
Mentally, it's a very difficult condition. We are in Belgium, we are in Spa, and it's not surprising me, but it's so bloody difficult to overtake. The visibility is very bad as well, so we had many problems.
In the Pescarolo car, Comas is now desperate to change his slick tyres. But it's his race engineer Claude Jalopin's decision. Claude doesn't want to risk losing time by pitting early. Meanwhile, Jamie is loving his slick tyres. Despite rapidly thickening fog, he pulls back a lap on the leaders, and Creation have made a remarkable recovery to 4th place. Comas finally pits, and the tyres are changed to intermediates. But a twist of fate realises Claude's worst fears. By sheer bad luck, the fog has brought the safety car back out at the worst possible moment. Pescarolo are stopped at the end of the pit lane for a second time. They lose another lap, and Gounon moves Orica back ahead. Jamie now has the Pescarolo in his sights, but he's beginning to struggle with the car.
The front left is bouncing massively and it keeps locking up. I'll let you know more, but at a glance I say it looks alright. I want pressure's taken off of these tyres before they go away as soon as possible, please. We need to have a look at this front left.
Before Smithy has a chance to assess the situation, Jamie's back on the radio.
The car is massively pulling to the left. It's trying to pull to the left.
It's an engineering mystery that the team needs to solve, fast.
I don't know how far out is the steering wheel in a straight line. Well, it's not great, but, you know, you can drive it, but don't expect a lap record or anything.
Mystery still unsolved, the mechanics prepare for every possible scenario.
Well, what I'm thinking is if we can just stroke it right to the end.
That's what I wanted to do. I just want to stroke it. We're 2 laps in front of it, aren't we?
Now facing the possibility of not finishing yet another race, Bix reinstates his original plan: drive slowly.
You've got to work out what can he drop his lap time to keep the position.
We say he's got to do an hour.
Yeah, and it's raining.
If Jamie can nurse the car home, Creation can keep 4th place. Or perhaps better. Disaster has struck for Orica.
Oh, me. Car 4 Gounon has gone off. So, I don't know what that's all about, but so just be really careful. There's no need to load the car up anyway. His splitter's hanging off. The front of the car looks pretty. Unless they get the car out pretty quick, you know, you could bring it home in the end. You're on the podium.
Gounon had asked to come in and change his tyres, but the Orica bosses didn't want to lose time. Now their chance to fight for the win in the closing stages has blown up in a cloud of smoke and carbon fibre. The mechanics race to rebuild the car, but there's just too much damage to get back into the race.
They're now changing the left down front corner, which puts us probably P3.
Orica's reliability and fuel strategy had kept them in contention, but it just takes one mistake. This is a racing driver's worst nightmare.
We were completely dry till the end of the race. On a fuel consumption, we do 52 minutes.
Yeah.
So we're just about there, aren't we?
With Creation up to third and Pescarolo too far ahead, Jamie's mission is now to simply nurse the car home to a position on the podium.
You can slow right down.
Just slow down. You're 10 seconds a lap quicker than anyone else on the track, all right? So slow down.
But one thing racing drivers aren't very good at is driving slowly. And 12 laps later, it's a shattering blow, a dramatic end to a remarkable recovery. A tough pill to swallow after a long, hard weekend of total dedication from the whole team.
We thought we'd get it the last 40 minutes home, but something's broken at the rear end. He's lost all the drive, and that's the end of that. There goes our third place here today.
Battling to the end, Smithy and Jamie go through the formality of standard checks and tests.
Take the back off and have a look. Always have a look up the hole at the back, but I'll be very surprised if there's much you can do. I don't think we split the spare drive shaft in your boot.
40 minutes to go, we're P3. It's looking good. Car's handling really well. I think we were fastest on the track by miles, and it's just a disappointment. You know, you do all that effort, all the testing and everything, and you get to 40 minutes to go in a 6-hour race, and you think, oh no.
I can't take it anymore. It's just gutting, you know, but this is motor racing and it's cruel.
After a race full of problems for all the top teams, there's an unexpected winner. Team Zytek score a classic endurance racing victory thanks to a run that has been 100% problem-free. In the closing laps, Pescarolo pushed hard for victory, but after so many problems, they must settle for second.
On est forcément déçus parce qu'on se battait pour la première place. Il y a un Pescar qui est sorti juste au mauvais moment, qui nous a fait perdre un tour dans les stands. Ça a faussé la fin de course parce qu'on était vraiment en bagarre pour la première place avec l'Audi et la Zytek. On termine deuxième, on n'a pas eu d'ennui. C'est simplement de la malchance, donc c'est très positif quand même.
With Orica crashing out, it's the first time that the Audi R8 has been beaten at this event. Hope for all their rivals for Le Mans in June. But Creation are back to square one. They've always been fast, but it seems they just can't finish races.
The reality is that the car didn't finish, and it had a problem. And in this sort of environment, you just can't have a problem.
If they can't last 6 hours in Spa, how on earth will they race non-stop for 24 hours at Le Mans in June? There are just 62 days to go on the road to Le Mans, and Creation need a miracle.